Hello viewers, welcome to episode 5 of Make a Living on a Small Farm. It's your favorite farmer here as usual, Farmer Alfie. And on today's episode, I'm going to share with you how you can plan and design your farmland for maximum efficiency. And later on in the video, I'll also share with you my farm plan. That is an exclusive view, the big unveiling of my farm plan. And again, use it as a case study to run you through all that we will be discussing. So get a seat, grab a tea or coffee because there's more to learn today. As a farmer, the whole future success of your farming enterprise depends mostly on three things. The first is the selection of a good site. The second is the layout or design of your farm system. And the third one is the management system you choose for your farm. Largely, the management system will be influenced by the kind of layout design you select. And this will also strongly affect the cost of construction, the ease with which the farm can be managed, and in general, your future operational efficiency. The organization of roads, fields, pastures, and other major infrastructure can be a big opportunity or constraints for you years to come. One mistake in layout can result to repeated impediments to easy management every single year. So before you start your farm plan, it is important to follow some good design principles to achieve the best design layout. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. So to begin the planning and layout process, the first thing you have to do is to make some preliminary decisions. You should have in mind the clear idea and the type of farm enterprise you want to lay out or set up. And as a guide, some questions you may want to ask yourself would be: 1. How long will it take you to build your farm? 2. Which area of your farmland do you wish to develop immediately? And with that, you ask yourself, do you want to develop all the farmland area at a go, or you want to develop in phases? 3. Which kind of farm culture will you adopt? Will it be mono, will it be poly, or will it be permaculture? 4. Which level of production are you aiming to reach? Is this going to be subsistence farming or commercial farming? And if it's going to be commercial, on which scale or level do you want to produce? 5. Which system shall you adopt? Is it going to be solely extensive or solely intensive, or you want to blend the two and have a semi-intensive system? And 6. Which production cycles shall you adopt? Is it going to be seasonal or is going to be all year round? And 7. Will you integrate your farming activities with other agricultural production, maybe raising livestock? So using my farmland as a case study and attempting to answer these questions, I have estimated to build my farm in 3 years, God willing, and I plan to develop in phases, starting with the livestock area first. Permaculture is what I'm going for, with a semi-intensive system on a seasonal basis. Now, after you've completed your preliminary decisions, the next is to initiate the planning. And in doing that, it has two main components. The first is the organizational planning, in which you decide on the where, how, and in what order you will build the farm. The second is the physical planning, in which you decide on the layout, detailed designs, positioning, and earthwork. So let's take the first one. And under the organizational planning as well, there are some key principles that might well be understood before commencing, and I'll share this one as well with you. First, you need to understand the level of permanence on your farmland. This is because some aspects of your land can more easily be changed, removed, or modified than others. For instance, you cannot change where the municipal road is, or even the direction of the prevailing wind. On the other hand, you can more easily change the vegetation of your current crop field, or even the composition of your soil. Secondly, you need to understand how to work with these permanent features and be able to direct environmental flow. Yes, it is true that you cannot change the road location, but you could modify your driveway to access the major roads from the best points from your farm setup. Again, you cannot change the direction of the prevailing wind, but you can put in place a windbreak So strive to understand ways to channel the energy moving through your farmland to work together with these existing features and infrastructure on your land. Thirdly, you need to understand that permanent features need more consideration, especially at the planning stage. Designing of permanent structures to be constructed and its location should both be influenced principally by the desired management system and the efficiency of labor. Remember, raising a new structure requires much more consideration to avoid placing it at the wrong location. And a poorly placed structure can dictate so much about your farm for years to come. Using an eraser to change the position of a plant on paper is much more easier compared to when the structure is already built and mistakes are discovered. In this way, you have to live with the mistakes for years to come as well. On the fourth principle, you have to make sure to make teams for your farm spaces or areas. So before you lay out any major lanes, field, pastures or structures, look at the current common and environmental zones within your farmland and consider the intended use of these different areas. Give teams to these areas by using the bubble diagram technique. Bubble diagrams are used to define different spaces within a landscape, and the reason being that each bubble space will require a different attention than the other during the designing process. To achieve this, make a large overlapping circle across the entire area. Then create smaller team circles within the big circle to help focus on your intent and use. One circle can serve primarily as a farm center where buildings and sheds and other structures can be located, whilst an area found to be good in soil can also be circled to serve as a crop field. Lastly, you have to connect these small teams together to allow for flow and movement within the farm spaces. So consider how these different spaces connect by roads and lanes and the movement of energy within your farm space. Make sure they connect and link up in sensible ways for what actually moves within this zone. For instance, if produce from your crop field is harvested and brought to your barn area, which is then washed or processed and a vehicle then picks it up to the market, then it makes more sense to build a new infrastructure with this flow in mind. Don't place your storage between the field and the wash station, but rather you place your wash station first, then connect it by roads or lane to your storage area or processing area, which you can then make an outward lane to serve as an access route for pickup by vehicles easily to the market. Good. So let's go to the second component, which is the physical planning. And before I jump into that, I'll encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you have not, or this is the first time you are watching me. And again, I want you to also share and like this video. If you're able to watch this video to the end, I'm sure you are going to be part of the big unveiling. This is a big surprise for you to the end of the video. As mentioned earlier, the physical planning involves layout, detailed designs, positioning, and some earthworks. It is important to note at this stage that no standard principle applies here. The reason being that these principles will vary in individual cases, depending on the location, the kind of farm enterprise, and the preference of the owner or farmer, and more importantly, the varied conditions you face on each farmland. However, irrespective of the farm enterprise chosen, there are some common features that run through most farms, and this is what I'll be elaborating on in this section. Such features include fan belts, windbreaks, crop field, pastures, sheds, irrigation facilities, fencing, and some disposal facilities. For safety purposes, it is important for a farmland to have a fan belt, a windbreak, and an access road. Fan belt means a stripe of land which is usually set aside and maintained for the purpose of preventing the spread of bushfire or some wildfires. A windbreak or shelter belt is a plantation which is made up of one or two rows of trees planted in a way to provide shelter from the prevailing wind and as well serve as a barrier against erosion. And these are commonly planted along the edges of farmlands. Its other benefits include providing a habitat for wildlife like some birds, and in other regions the trees are harvested for other tree products regularly. To talk about access roads, it's a road that provides passage to your farm or to a collection or receiving point within the farm, and also grants access to some main roads or highways that connect to your farm. Construction of access road will vary depending on the required specification and the intended use. But the rule of thumb here is to always position your access road at a very vantage point of your farmland during the design process so as to give you easy access to your land and easy access to market. For crop fields, it is advisable to make the number of fields smaller depending on the topographic conditions the farm will permit and allow for rotation of pastures. Rotation of pastures over all the farm is one of the best way of rebuilding soil fertility on the entire farm. In doing this, you need to arrange them in a way so that one end of the crop field is as near to the farmstead as possible. This is to minimize traveling distance to and from the crop farm and also to reduce chore time. So viewers, like I promised, it is the moment to unveil the big plan, and this is what make a living on a small farm will look like when it's completed. So here is my farmland, and I'm going to use this as a case study to run you through all that I've discussed earlier. So here we go. Pa pa pada. So viewers, this is the big plan. This is my farm plan, and at this point I want to use it as a case study and explain to you the two components of the planning, because that is key. When you miss that, you are likely to run into challenges during your layout. So I'll follow you through the same plan or explanation I did for you to get a detailed understanding of what I meant earlier on. The first thing I mentioned was that you needed to understand the level of permanency on your farmland. So from my plan, I noticed that there was a municipal road here. So I knew I couldn't do anything about this road. So what I did was that I rather position my access road closer to it, like I explained. So this side will be my access road. So any moment I have to visit the farm, I can either use here straight and I connect to the main road, or I come this way and create another way to my entrance. This is what I meant about understanding the permanency of some features on your farm. What I noticed again was that the direction of the prevailing wind was coming from this end. That's where the wind was blowing to. So if you can see these green marks I have here, these are trees that I'll be planting, and these are the trees that will serve as my windbreak. So if you watch here, I am planting trees all along the edges of the farm. The whole idea is for it to serve as a windbreak to protect some livestock and some structures from heavy rainstorms, and also to prevent erosion along the boundaries of the farmland. So this side all will have windbreaks all over, and under the windbreaks we will also set fire belts under all this area all along the farm, in the sense that from this side of my property I have some adjoining farmers as well there, and anytime they set fire to their farmland, I want to prevent their fire from spreading to my farm. So I'll equally plant fire belts all around the edges of the farm. So by planting the windbreaks and fire belts here, I've been able to direct the environmental flow within the farmland, such that directing the direction of the air and how to access the farm from. To the most important point now is how to make a team for the farm. So from what I discussed earlier, what the first thing you need to do is to make a big circle on the total farm area. So using my farm as a case study, I have already completed it, but just to show how to go about it. So after I have drawn my bigger circle to cover the entire farmland, what I did next was to now find out the spaces within my farmland, check what is happening there in terms of hard grounds, wet grounds, irregular grounds, and be able to make a team depending on my use. So from that exercise, I noticed that I had very good high grounds here. So what I intend to do here is to now put some permanent structures here. So here forms my high ground. And I notice also I have some wet ground, not that big, but also here. So the plan for this side was to put a fish pond here since I had a wet ground here. And this side, I noticed I had some irregular landfills. So in order not to disturb its nature, I decided to construct my pasture rather here. So I have my pasture here. So this is what is meant by forming a team, smaller teams, which now forms into the bigger picture. And I believe this you can equally and simply do on your own as well. This is my plan for my farmland. And from this plan, what I intend to do is to go into livestock farming and do a bit of crop farming here. Now, I'm giving myself, like I mentioned, 3 years to complete this plan. And the second phase of my farm plan should kick off from the third year to the fifth year upwards. What I'll be doing at that stage is that I will transition from a farmland into a farm resort. The whole idea is to set up the whole place like a private farm resort, whereby people will come in and have the opportunity to lodge and also do some farming and practice some DIY activities on their own. So from the plan, now that I identified the hardest area here, what I did was to make allocation for an area for wooden cabins that will be in the phase 2 of the transition process, and also make room for some camping area as well, where people might come and use tents and all that to camp on farm and access the facilities on the farm. They won't just come and be bored. I've created a play area as well. So if you watch here, I'm trying to explain to you the flow, and in it that people are lodging here, they easily come here and have their playtime here. And I have my pasture and garden here. So there's a fish pond as well here. So this area I have left for a recreational area. So this is a recreational area. This is a habitat or residential area. Then I have allocated all my livestock area around this area. With this approach as well, you can see that the distance between where people will commute and live is very far from where the animal or farm livestock will be positioned. This arrangement is so in case that sometimes the odors and the waste product that make byproducts that will result from nature do not need to be contaminated or mixed up with human activity, and the reason for this. So with this same approach, you can equally also take your time, do an investigation of the site, get to know which or what is happening at each side of your farmland, and use that to table out a very nice farm plan using the bubble cycle approach like I've just shown you. And out of that, you get the entirety or the full plan of your farmland. So this side is the entry area where car park access and all that will be. The main residence or the farmstead will be here. And the reason for placing it here is to allow easy access and travel time in terms of chores of movement to all the various components of the farm. If I had placed it here, it would take me a longer time to journey all the way here to have an activity. So usually placing it at the center or at this side is the best approach, because now I can say that this side, this circle represents my farm center, and in it has my farmstead. And from here, I'm able to move any other direction I want to go. So this is the big plan, this is the big dream, and this is exactly what we are going to implement on the farmland. You don't need to rush into this. It is a big plan. It is going to be in phases, like I said. So I am starting with the goat area first. So in this area, I'm going to construct a goat pen, make an area for their pasture, and also build some small greenhouse and chicken and turkey pen to start with. So this is what I'll be developing from the subsequent series to come. So viewers, this is where I'll bring today's episode to an end. And I believe by my illustration, you have learned a lot. And with this as well, you'll be able to plan and lay out your farm on your own. As a bonus, I have these two plans here I want to share with you, and you can incorporate it if only it meets your space requirement or your need. Like I said, if you watch here, I did this plan in the year 2012, I did this 2016, and I have this in 2022. This is to explain to you that farm planning or layout is not just an overnight approach. It's a work in progress, and you need to take your time and build upon it. You can decide to have a yearly approach, or so if in the case that due to new technologies or events your plan change, you can easily visit your drawing board and make those necessary corrections. So this is what I did in 2012, and this plan was to house goats, rabbits, quail, some ducks and chicken. So if you look at it from here, this is just the floor plan view which I did by freehand. So in the goat pen I had a feeder and the pen area here. With the rabbit, I did a rabbit and kitchen coop here, and I did a quail and some aquaponics, just a simple tank aquaponic here and some barrels. So you can see this is the plan, this is the front view, this is the back view, and this is the side view of it. You can copy and repeat this if it meets your requirement or your space. Again, from this I transitioned into this, which was in 2016. In 2016, I decided that out of the 6-acre land, why don't I start with just an acre and develop whilst I go. So based on that idea, I developed this, and this is just for a 1-acre plan. So if you have a 1-acre land lying idle, you can simply copy this plan and implement it on your farmland. So in this as well, this was a built on this. So this even had a space for a piggery. You can see this is the area for the piggery, and I had this for the rabbit as well. Like you can see the rabbit here, and even made some crop farm, and I introduced some crop farm. So these were long beds, series of beds, soil beds that we were going to implement and grow some crops as well. The house had a well that was the center of the, so in terms of irrigation to the crop farm and piping works or watering works to the piggery and all the other components, it was much easy because it was at the center. And again, you can notice here that the farmland, the farmstead was placed at the center of the property. It is always important. You need to cut down the working time, So any distance that will make it shorter for you to operate within those time frames, you should do. So from here equally, it becomes easy to access all the features of the farmland more easily instead of placing it somewhere here that you have to walk all the area. So this had a goat pen, a chicken pen, a duck pen, a yard for the duck pen, and I had some small snail farm as well here with some plantation here. So this is a full setup which can easily be implemented on a 1-acre plan. So if you have a 1-acre plot line and you want to go into, let's say, starting with livestock, you can start with piggery, you can start with the goat, you can start with the duck, you can start with the rabbit, and it has a 3-bedroom farm residence as well here with a workshop where you have your tools, your feed, and your storeroom also here. So this is something you could easily implement. So from 2016, since I didn't do the 1-acre, I decided to go for all the 6-acre, and that is what brought me to the farm plan that I shared with you earlier on. This allows for flow of natural energy. The teams have been put together and they are flowing, and the movement and work has been factored in. With this plan, it is going to reduce the traveling time within the farmlands. It will make us work more efficiently. It will make us reach every other unit on the farmland as well more easily, and be able to access the market more easily because I've just planned it close to the main road.